talked about a few of like what I would call skills, and there's soft skills, really.
Yes.
There's soft skills of a salesperson who usually has some experience or some really good coaching that through that experience or good coaching, he's learned when to ask questions, when not to. He's learned how much he should talk and how much he shouldn't. If he asks open-ended questions, he's automatically going to talk less than the
Yes.
other person.
Yes.
What have you seen about order of operation?
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
so you hear these things like this 10-step sales process,
Yes.
or even us with our flight plan and that type of thing that we teach.
Yes.
Has there been proof that that stuff works? Number
Yes.
one, and secondly, has there been anything that was like, that actually happens before this, and that kind of surprised us?
Yeah, so totally. So we did find evidence that these critical things that, in the 10-step process, they do work, and some have like really clear evidence more than others. So one of the things we found is that the top performers in overall from our analysis, they talk about company story, qualifying sequence, and financing terms. 2, 3, even 7 times more on average
But I
than
hear it's not
other
important
average
to talk
reps.
about the company story. Nobody cares.
No, that is important.
Okay.
I
Because I've had
disagree.
a million sales coaches tell me they don't care anything about your company at all. They just want you to get to the point, and how do you
No,
solve
no, no,
it?
no, no. I mean, no. I mean that we can get into the whole thing of like what kind of personality of customer you're talking to. If they're
Mhm.
like like the whole personality test with the blue and the red and the yellow. And like, but even no. Even for people, it's like, oh, get to the point. Talking about your company story matters a lot. 3 times more likely to make a sale if you're talking about the company story versus not.
Oh, that's
Um,
a big stat.
Yeah, 3 times. It's like if you obviously like in the long run, right? If you just like let it play for multiple, like you are going to make more money. Absolutely. If you use a company story, that's one of the biggest differentiators that we saw in the top performers versus others, that the average reps don't use it as much and the top performers use it almost all the time. So they
So
do.
what's
They
the second thing? So
absolutely
so company story was one. What was the second thing?
qualification sequence. So asking those really important open-ended questions at the beginning about what made you call it here today? How long have you been living in your home? Have you ever worked with a contractor? Like they do it, and they spend a lot of time on it. And then the other one was financing terms.
The money. How are we going to pay for it?
How we're going to pay for it, and having some sort of payment plans and offering some different payment plans, spending a good amount of time on that, and talking about it, not just like giving a price. And it's not just the financing terms is not just talking about price. It's like talking about the payment itself. Like, how are you going to pay for it? Is there an interest involved? Is there a loan? Is there, is it cash after? Like going into the details about how that customer is actually going to pay for that project, not just what the price is.
So
Uh-huh.
so if I understand what you're telling me, Craig, I want to be clear here.
Mm-hmm.
If I spend more time on company story, qualification sequence, and financing terms, my success rate will go up.
Yes.
So
And if you
there's
use it more,
something
if you just
interesting that's
use it more.
missing from all that. There's something like really interesting missing from all that.
Wait, what was
You
that? What was
didn't
that?
you didn't mention anything about the demo, the products, or any of that. Like, I know it's important, but it's not as important as those three.
That's not as important as those 3. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, my hypothesis again, and this is just me interpreting the data. When you're selling a product that 5 other contractors are selling, the product usually undifferentiated. so and so
You're a hero with our dancing around a fine line here. I can hear that in your conversation. So what you're saying is a shingle's a shingle? A bathtub's a bathtub?
yeah, you said that and say
Well, I think there's some unique identifying factors that help
sure.
a salesperson separate themselves from the commodity that most
Yes.
people believe it to be.
So
But
yeah, so but think about it, like, yeah. So I think it's that. I honestly think it's that. And then when a homeowner's deciding how to, like, who to trust with their home, they mostly think it's like, who do I want to work with? Like, I don't, that there's so many bad contractors out there. I don't want to be, in one of those situations where my home, like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't want to put their home at risk, right? It's their home usually, and so like they're thinking it's like, okay, this product sounds good, it sounds great. Most of them don't have any idea. Most homeowners don't know anything about roofing, shingles. They don't know anything about windows. They just want to solve a problem that they have.
And manufacturers, please don't shoot me. They don't care. They want to trust you that you're going to help them find the right one.
Yes.
And so that leads me to another question, because you hear this all the time. This is one of those things you hear all the time. People don't buy from companies, they buy from people.
Yes.
Are you finding anything in the data that's leading you to that?
Yeah, I mean the company story. Well, I mean it depends how but usually the company story it's a story about the people behind the company, right? And you hear them. I've heard so many company stories. I have like a broken record of company stories in my head already. It's like my company was back in 1776. George Washington declared independence. Whereas like we are number one American roofing, and so like the data proves that people want to do business with. They want to understand who they're doing business with. If it's reputable people that they can trust, because that's what the company story is about, right? So that data point of like the top performers use the company story 3 times more on average than everybody else. That kind of
is actually what we teach. Like my belief is, and this is just from, I don't have data necessarily to prove it like I would if I had a Rilla Voice type situation.
Yeah,
but I found that my reps, when I did go on those one-on-one calls and do what we do, that they had more success telling company story and personal story than they had just telling company story.
Yes.
So they would talk about the company and how awesome it was and how many neighbors they had put the roofs on for, or whatever it was they had done, all their certifications and all that stuff. But then they would add this little piece. It was like, yeah, I've worked with them for 3 years. I went to school over here. I've gotten these certifications through the company. And it's because I really want to do this. And this is my family. And these are my kids. And this is what they do. Like they would bring in that personal side of it in their story. And those guys were way more successful. Just
we
absolutely
probably need to crunch the numbers on that, because that's actually something that I saw by looking at some of these examples. Where like the top performer would say, like, I've been, it's family business. It's like, oh, that's actually my dad who owns the business, and I've grown up in this industry, and I started working, and they show pictures. Like actually, I'm gonna crunch the numbers on that.
Yeah, I would love to know the data on that. The ones that say things like
personal story.
I grew up here. I grew up here and I went to school over there, and I am a part of this community and live hit my mic there. So that's
you can actually divide it, and you can tell now the AI is so powerful. That's what I was saying. Like it's even better than if you sent a human being to take notes out there, because you can actually just say like, hey, GPT-4, can you just tell me from this data set which ones of these, from the ones we looked at, which ones of these are the person's actually using a personal story versus a company story, or both. And so it'll tell you, it'd be like, oh, there's
one. Now that I gave you the idea, I want to know the results.
I
want to hear
the number.
So, has there been anything that surprised you, like in order of operation?
Yes. So, usually when you learn about these 10-step processes, you typically you do something like, okay, you do an intro at the door, you sit at the kitchen table, or you do an inspection first, and then or you sit at the kitchen table, you do the agenda, and or you do the inspection first, and then you do the inspection, you ask a bunch of qualifying questions, then you do a survey, and then you sit down, and then the first thing you do before you start your demo is you do the company story. Right. The company story is like one of the first things that happens when you sit down and you begin your presentation.
Top performers have already done that, haven't they?
Right. So what we saw was, one of the things that we can see with Rilla is not only which topics are being talked about and for how long, but when are they being talked about? Average reps, when they mention the company story, they usually do it about minute 30, minute 40, like 30 to 45, right? Top performers mention the company story like an hour and 45, an hour and 55 minutes into the conversation.
Oh, wow. So later, they're locking in that trust later.
Well, so what we saw was that they actually talked about the company story after they've talked about financing terms, which is weird, right?
Yeah, that's kind of backwards.
And it's on average, right? It's on average. So that we're looking at the average numbers. So the reason we saw it. And then what's weird is that they're doing everything else, right? So like they're going through like like the slides that talk about like the perils of the home improvement industry. Like you need to be careful of who you're working with, because you can't be working with just any kind of contractor, because contractors, like some of them are not insured, some of them are not, you know what I mean? Like you're putting your home at risk, and they're going into those pain points. They're still doing that, right? And they're talking about the product demo, and here's a window, and blah blah blah. And sometimes they're talking about the warranties and the insurance and stuff like that. But then they talk about financing terms. When you're talking about financing terms, that's usually when the sale begins, right? Because everything you've done before, it's like, the preamble to like set it up in such a way that you're going to be able to like actually get a deal done. When you give that price and you're talking about how to pay it, and you're talking about, that's when you start dealing with the objections. And that's when the boxing match begins. And you have to bob your head and weave, right? The homeowner says the price is too
Four
high,
C's,
right?
baby.
Yeah.
Like closing
Like,
roadmap.
Yeah. So the price is too high. I need to think about it. Talk to my
I need
my
three
family
estimates.
members.
I
I need another estimate. I need to blah blah blah. All the objections, right? And so then that's when the top performers, that's when they bring their magic bullet, which is their company story.
So is that where they start talking about maybe some of the pledges they use? This like, hey, you can shop us. That's cool. We have this pledge that if you beat us with anybody else, we'll give you $100. Like that's part of that company story.
Yes, like everything exactly. So that's when they stop. They take a step back. They validate objections, just like usual, because they're asking qualifying questions at the end, even, and they qualify with objections. It's like, what is it about this price? It doesn't work for you. Oh, you're looking at other estimates. Interesting. You have a cheaper estimate. Interesting. Okay. And what about, that company makes you like,
If they were the same price, which one would you choose?
yeah, exactly. And then you go and you say, no, well, I really like that. I mean, that company, I don't know, they have good reviews and stuff like that. I was like, well, let me tell you a little bit about my company.
Yeah. They start giving you the objection of why they're thinking about the other one, and you're able to go, oh, well, that's on me. I should have told you sooner. Right. Exactly. So
now it's like it has so much gravitas. Like, you're telling them why is it that they should go with you, and they're like, oh wow, like you're not working with just any contractor here, Mr. Homeowner. We're a local, family business. We've been around for 60 years, 20 years, 5 years. We have all these reviews. Look at all these customer testimonials. We really never go out back. So yes, maybe your price is going to be maybe 20-30% more expensive with us, but here's what you're paying for, right? You're paying for making sure that your project's going to be done with the greatest quality and care. You're going to call me or my dad or whoever it is. We're going to be on the phone, and you're not going to be put on through some line. And that's when they really go into it. It's like that's when it becomes important.